All right, let's talk about something you've seen pretty much everywhere. We're talking elite marathoners, NBA superstars, even just the person jogging past you in the park. I'm talking about those sleek, tight compression sleeves. They are one of the most visible pieces of athletic gear out there. But what do they actually do? Are they some kind of high-tech performance tool, or are they just a fashion statement? Today, we're going to separate the hype from the reality. And man, the hype is huge. I mean, just look at the claims from a massive brand like Nike. They're promising the holy trinity of benefits. You'll recover better, you'll run more efficiently, and you'll get injured less. Those are some really bold promises for what looks like a simple piece of fabric.
And that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? When you strip away all the marketing, all the cool sponsorships, what does the hard evidence from actual scientific studies have to say about it? Well, that's exactly what we're here to find out.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll look at why so many athletes are wearing them and the science behind how they're supposed to work. Then, we're going to put the three big claims to the test: performance, recovery, and injury prevention. Before we give you our final verdict, hype or reality. Let's go. So what is the big squeeze all about? Let's start with the real-world reasons athletes are pulling these things on in the first place. The answer might surprise you.
You know, when you look at data from over 500 athletes, you'd think performance would be the #1 reason, right? But it's actually dead last at less than 9%. The overwhelming driver is injury. Almost half of users wear them to stop an old injury from coming back. The rest are focused on managing a current issue or just preventing a new one.
Okay, so we know most athletes are using them for injuries and recovery, but how are they actually supposed to work? To get to that, we need to dive into the science of pressure.
At its core, a compression sleeve is a pretty simple idea. It's just a stretchy tube of fabric, usually some blend of nylon and spandex, that fits really snugly around your arm or leg. But the secret sauce isn't just that it's tight, it's that it applies what's called graduated pressure. Fun fact, this was actually a medical invention first, used to treat things like varicose veins, long before it ever hit a basketball court. So how does that graduated pressure work? Well, there are three main theories. First up is squeeze and flow. I want you to think of gently squeezing a tube of toothpaste from the bottom up. The sleeve is tightest way down at your ankle or wrist, and it gets a little looser as it goes up your leg or arm. The idea is to help push that oxygen-poor blood back up towards your heart more efficiently. Second, they dampen vibrations. Every time your foot smacks the pavement when you run, your calf muscles shake. The sleeve basically hugs the muscle, holding it in place, which could, in theory, reduce fatigue and tiny bits of muscle damage. And third, they're meant to boost recovery. Better circulation could mean your body clears out all that metabolic junk, like lactic acid, a lot faster after you exercise. All right, the theory sounds pretty good, but now it's time to put it to the test. Let's tackle that first big claim. Do compression sleeves actually boost your performance while you're out there competing? This is probably the question that sells the most sleeves, right? Can this piece of gear give you a real, tangible edge over your competition? Is it going to make you run faster, climb higher, or last longer? Let's see what the folks in the lab coats found out. Well, the first results are pretty blunt. When scientists ran controlled studies on both trail runners and sports climbers, they found that wearing compression sleeves had basically no significant impact on their performance. The big claims about improving endurance just didn't hold up in these tests.
The data is pretty clear here. I mean, in a brutal 24-kilometer trail run and in a climbing endurance test, the finish times were virtually identical between the group with sleeves and the group without. The stopwatch showed zero difference.
But hold on, the story isn't quite that simple. Because while the performance outcome, the finish time, didn't change, the researchers noticed something else was going on under the hood. On a physiological level, there was a significant difference.
And here's the fascinating twist. One study found that the sleeves significantly improved muscle oxygenation, so that means they are affecting blood flow, just like the theory says they should. The weird part is, that measurable physical change didn't translate into better performance. They were changing the athletes' bodies, just not their final results.
Okay, so if the performance claim is kind of a bust, let's pivot to the next big one, recovery. Can wearing these sleeves after your workout help you feel better, faster? This is where the evidence starts to look a whole lot more promising.
Now, this finding comes from a big review of all the scientific literature. And whenever you see the term meta-analysis, your ears should perk up. That basically means researchers have scooped up the results from a ton of different studies to find the overall trend. And in this case, two separate meta-analyses came to the exact same conclusion. Compression helps with muscle soreness.
So the recovery verdict is in, and it's a clear win for compression sleeves. The science is most supportive right here, showing a modest but consistently positive effect on reducing what's called delayed onset muscle soreness, or DOMS. You know that feeling. It seems that improved blood flow we saw earlier really does help clear out all the byproducts that make you feel so stiff and sore the day after a tough workout.
Okay, so they help with soreness after a workout. But what about the biggest claim of all? Let's tackle the #1 reason athletes wear these things: to act as a shield against injury.
This is probably the trickiest claim to prove. I mean, can a piece of fabric really stop you from getting shin splints or pulling a calf muscle? While there isn't one single definitive study that gives us a clear yes or no, there are some pretty plausible ideas that could explain why so many athletes are convinced they work.
So while we don't have a smoking gun, there are 4 potential ways they might help. 1, they can slightly alter your biomechanics. Remember that trail running study? It found the sleeves actually changed how long a runner's foot was on the ground. 2, they definitely reduce that muscle vibration, which could lessen wear and tear over time. 3, they might enhance what's called proprioception. Basically, the constant pressure on your skin gives your brain better feedback on where your leg is, which could prevent an awkward step. And 4 is the huge psychological factor. Nearly 90% of athletes who wear them to prevent re-injury believe they are effective, and that belief, on its own, can be incredibly powerful.
Okay, we've looked at all the claims, we've dug into the science. It's time to bring it all together and deliver the final verdict on compression sleeves: hype or reality.
So when it comes down to it, you just have to align your expectations with the evidence. For pure performance, it's mostly hype. They are not a magic bullet, but physiologically, they do create real, measurable changes in your blood flow. Their strongest, most proven benefit is in recovery, where they have a modest but real effect on soreness. And for injury prevention, the benefit seems to be largely in your head, but that feeling of confidence can be super valuable in itself. So you should think of them less as a performance enhancer and more as a recovery aid.
So the final question really is, are they worth it for you? Look, if you're hoping to shave a few seconds off your race time, the science says you might be wasting your money. But if your main goal is to feel less beaten up the day after a hard session, or if you just value that feeling of support that lets you train with more confidence, then hey, they could be a worthwhile investment. It's really less about what they do during the workout and a whole lot more about how they help you get ready for the next one. And for a lot of athletes, that edge is worth everything.